Ever wish you had someone to tell you the truth about what it takes to run a successful business and live a fulfilling life? Well, amiguita, you've come to the right place. So grab your favorite cafecito or cocktail, your courage, and let's get to work. I'm Jenna Sabores, a therapist, business strategist, mindset coach for entrepreneurs, and a feisty Latina from Miami. And I'm determined to teach you the exact tools you need to stop settling and start kicking some serious derriere. What do you say? Are you in? Then let's get started. Welcome to Latinas Empowering Latinas podcast. Welcome back, everybody. I am super excited because I am here with a super special guest. Her name is Lily Saviñon, and she happens to be a cousin by marriage. But more than that, Lily is completely amazing. She was a professor over at FIU and is now a professor at And for the non-Florida people, that is Florida International University and the University of Miami, which is a super big deal. She teaches business and marketing at the school. I'm honored to be part of her family, and some backstory that is actually a little funny and embarrassing, but what the hell, we'll share it here, was that when I moved to Florida and I opened my business here, I called Lily because I'm like, she knows about business and marketing. At this time, I had no Facebook, no Instagram, no social media, no LinkedIn. And I remember calling Lily. I'm like, okay, well, what can I do to market and advertise? And she's like, well, you update your LinkedIn. And I'm like, I don't have a LinkedIn. Okay, well, on Facebook, I don't have Facebook. And she's like, oh my God, have you been under a rock? And I'm like, well, therapists kind of are under rocks. So I went to her for some advice, and slowly but surely, with some sprinkled knowledge and then kind of going through things on my own, I eventually figured it out. But I thought it would be so awesome to have Lily join us today to give us a professional business and marketing person who not only went through business and marketing, but teaches it, to join us today. So Lily, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that beautiful intro, Jen.
Anytime.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all.
So, Lily, I guess I'll just start off with, what was your first impression? I don't get embarrassed and you're not going to insult me. What was your first impression when we had that conversation and you were giving me all these super basic tips and I was completely lost? What did you think?
You know what's really funny is that that's kind of one of the reasons why I went into teaching. And it's because of people like you, I had clients who were most of the time had no idea, what social media was or how to set up a Facebook, how to work their phones, things like that. Sometimes it kind of went into IT support and I was like, that's not my field. But
that's not me.
Yeah, it's really, really common. A lot of small business owners reached out to me just because of that, right? They really didn't even know where to start. So it's really common. So I don't know if that serves as any type of, I guess validation. It wasn't surprising just because most business owners just kind of would dive in and they would be experts in whatever it is that they would, be executing. But they most of the time never put any thought into marketing and how they were going to put the word out there. That's how I found the niche Realty Creative, where I really liked to help the small business, the small guys, get out there and thrive. Also, it helped me realize that I really enjoyed educating. And then that kind of all segued into where I'm at today.
Awesome. So I never thought about that. The reason, obviously, you go through school and then you opened up your company, which I failed to mention, so I apologize, LD Creative, which is also phenomenal. And while you were working with these small businesses is when you realized people didn't have the foundation. They had this expertise in whatever field they were in, but not in the marketing or business. And that's why you went back to teach at school, which is so amazing. What's the most, everybody, probably most of the people that are listening right now are in that same exact spot. They don't have a business or marketing background. They don't know what to do. They're not going to go back to school to learn business and marketing because they already went to school for their career. What basic tips can you share? What's the difference, I think, between somebody who goes through a program like you did versus somebody who's completely green like us? Where can we bridge that gap almost?
I think it really boils down to self-reflection, which might be surprising, but you really need to know who you're trying to market to, right? And what does that mean? What do they do? What motivates them? You have to really dig into the insights of that target audience. And I know I'm giving you all type of marketing jargon, right? But that's really what it is. So for the normal person outside of marketing.
I didn't know what you were talking about a few years ago, but I get it now. I'm going to go a little deeper. I try to teach my people ICA and niche, right? If you haven't heard that, go back to older episodes. We go over it. But essentially, ICA is your ideal client and your niche is what you specialize in. What specialty can you provide for them specifically for their pain points? As a professor, I'm going to ask you, what happens which is very common when people say, I want to help everybody. I want everybody to be my customer. Like, what happens there?
Right. What happens is that your word is so diluted that you have minimal impact. You really need to start defining that, right? And maybe you don't know what that is. And maybe it's a matter of testing and seeing exactly what, and kind of go through that journey, that self, I guess, realization with your marketer, which seems like a little bit of more of like an intimate type of relationship that you might have expected. But it's true, sometimes you think, okay, I'm going to start this business and this is who my customer is. And then when you actually do it, you know what? There's more of a need for this type of customer, or actually, I really enjoy doing this, right? And your business evolves and your marketing should go with it. But yeah, a lot of the times I would have business owners come and say, well, I want to market to the world.
Yes.
I want to market to everybody,
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, that's good. I mean, it's nice that everybody would know, but that's more of a brand awareness versus marketing, right? That's a part of it. Sure, you want everyone to know whatever your brand is, but who do you want to be the lead? Who do you want to come to your business and be your actual customer, your patient, whatever it may be?
It's really interesting because, again, I know exactly where you're coming from. I was there. I didn't get it. It took me years. I've redefined. I've pivoted. I've done it all. And I know that the people that are listening to this are like fighting. They fight me. My clients fight me. I'm sure your clients fight you. And they're like, no, but everybody. I'll give an example. The other day I ran into these really lovely ladies. They're really good at what they do. I don't want to be too specific. And they're trying to grow like events and retreats. I remember talking to her. I'm like, well, who's your ICA? And she's like, what?
Okay.
And I'm like, well, who do you want? Like, all women. And I'm like, okay. I said, but who specifically? And they're like, that marketing stuff doesn't work for us. That doesn't work for what we're doing. And I was like, wow, you're missing out on so much potential growth because you think it doesn't apply. So I want to clarify, and feel free to jump in if I'm wrong, but there is no business that can survive and explode without an ICA.
Right. Yeah.
Without clarity.
Just because
there's no way.
So let's say that you do events, right? and you want to market, you in your mind, right? You want every single female to be your customer. Okay. Well, then what you need to do is segment your messaging. So then you'll say, okay, well, women between 18 and 24 have certain, let's say that they're in like the graduation type of event, right? So maybe that you're marketing to and your messaging speaks to that so that they can identify with it. Because if you were to go and target 18 to 24 with some sort of retirement retreat, that could be fantastic for anybody that's in their late 50s.
Yes.
They're probably not going to click on it,
Yes. But that's the thing. And I try to explain to people that depending on what age you're in, because people do say like 30 to 60. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's so many different stages of life just in that. Whether somebody is not a mom or married or a new mom or a mom of a toddler, a mom of a teenager or an empty nester, like right there in that window, there's so many stages. So you can't market or talk to them or hit their pain points, or you want to make people feel like they're reading your information or they're reading your email or they're seeing your website and they feel like you're talking directly, specifically to them, like you're in their head.
Right.
And you can't have that kind of messaging if it's so broad. So how did you finally get your people to understand, no, you need to get deeper. No, you need to dig deeper. Like, how did you get that to them? Because I find people are so resistant, and I'm sure people that are listening to us are resistant right now.
Yeah. Well, sometimes sometimes we just jumped in and we tested, and it was kind of like, well, the proof is in the pudding, right? Look at the numbers. This is not that great, right?
Okay, I like that.
Sometimes it went down to that, which I tried to avoid as much as I could because, it's always an uncomfortable conversation. Like you always want to have the conversations where look how fantastic your promotion is going. But sometimes you have to have the difficult conversations in order for them to really understand. And what happens a lot of time in marketing is at first you can't promise anything, right? Because nothing really is promised. And then secondly, a lot of it is not as tangible as the ROI that a lot of business owners are comfortable with.
ROI is return on investment for those non-marketing business people. So you want to make sure that whatever you're putting out, you're getting money back or you're getting sales back or it's worth your time and your money and your investment. Sorry, go ahead, Lily.
Yeah. So a lot of business owners, they are comfortable with that, right? They say, okay, how much does it cost me per customer? They don't really know that until they see the numbers, right? And that's the language that they're comfortable with. So then, that's why sometimes it kind of gets down to that in avoiding it before I would get there. which in my opinion is a little bit more of the extreme, is I would ask them about who their customers are today rather than, oh, who do you want to target, right? So it was more of,
That's a good question too. Like, who's coming to your door now? I like it.
yeah. So it's more so, at least the guard would go down a little bit just because they'd be talking about what they, I guess, what their experience has been up until then.
Okay.
So then sometimes that conversation would then lead into it where it's like, okay, well, now this is what I've observed, right? I would take some notes. It's like, okay, so can we assume that X, Y, and Z? All right, so why don't we go ahead and this is my recommendation, right? Like, let's target these people, see how that goes. And if they would really push, then you would have a promotion that would target that, and then a promotion that would target more of that broad audience happening in tandem so that they could compare the numbers at the end of the month or at the end of the 3-month pilot period or whatever it might be.
You're a genius, because the first thing I thought about was like, okay, you're going to call them out on their stuff.
Yeah.
And then you're going to kind of like essentially, unfortunately, watch them fail because you know better.
Mm-hmm.
But my question was going to be like, well, don't they just blame you for it not working? But what you're saying is like you ran it their way and you ran it your way, and your way won, essentially, right? Is what you're saying.
Just because, most of the time they just want to see it, And I understand to a certain extent because it's
Got
like,
it. Such a smart cookie.
yeah, whenever it's, your business, it's your baby, right? And you want to make sure that everything is as you see. And you just met this marketing person, right? So who do they, like, what do they know? Who are they to come and judge or come and say?
Of course. No, but that makes sense.
In general.
Who are they? Yeah. What would you tell somebody who, let's not even say they're pivoting, right? Let's say that they're brand new and they've had no customers. So they have no point of reference to be able to say, okay, Lily, these are my people so far. Like, right. So I'll use myself as an example. So I could say like, Lily, in my practice, I work with couples, but really my coaching is going to be for business owners. But let's say I'm clear, but let's say I wasn't clear on who that would be. How do you help somebody pivot, or somebody who doesn't have any proof of success yet and they're frustrated?
That's a great question, Jen. I would tell them to look at competitors, right? Okay, so let's see who, and sometimes you go and you're like, oh, who are your competitors? And then they say, I don't know. So then that's a whole other conversation too.
Okay.
Because it's unfair to say.
Essentially what you're saying is if you don't have any proof of pudding yet, and that's what you want to do, and you have no experience, or you're just starting off or you're pivoting, then look at who's next to you doing what it is that you want to do and is good at it.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. I like that.
Yeah. So you would look at multiple, right? And maybe also in your market, in your size, things like that. Because what I found a lot of the times would be, let's say that you're, I don't know, the first time realtor, right? You've never sold a house before and you're trying to start. Then you look at these giant brokerages, right? That are selling $1 million properties, like multiple $1 million properties a year. And then that's who you consider to be your competitor. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily your competitor, because that person is not going to pull a sale from you or a seller from you.
Yes.
That person is looking at a completely different pool. That's more so a goal, right? And okay, if you want your brand to go in that direction, you can look at it, right? But let's define what competitors truly are.
And what are they? Let's talk about that. What you're saying is like, that's a goal to reach for, but it's a different market completely.
Of course.
Even budgeting of marketing, right? Like those big companies, although they're well known, they have the money to market much greater than you ever would. You can't even compare, and people don't think about that. They're probably putting a lot of money in advertising that you don't have, so you can't compare.
Right.
You want to compare people that are at your current level, not necessarily where you want to be completely. Somewhere in the middle, right?
And also in your market. So let's say if you're in Naples, right? You would compare to somebody that is in, I don't know, New York. It's going to be very different.
Absolutely.
Right. So I would say, sure, you could look at it, but, the competitive landscape, you have to look at geographical location. You have to look at, like age in business. You have to look at a bunch of different points for you to say, okay, well, maybe I define like different areas of what competitors are, right? And I don't want to get super granular into it, and I could go on and on for days. It's a professor in me, but yeah, it's like you really need to stop before you go and you start talking. You need to think, right? And you need to discuss with your marketer, because they're probably going to help you analyze and think differently, very much like you do with therapy, I'm sure.
Two things that come to mind. Number one, small business owners probably can't afford a marketer right now. They're doing all of this on their own. The conversations they're having are internal. There's nobody to bounce anything off with.
Oh, okay.
Off of. but this is good. But I want to kind of get back to this place where we're speaking to somebody who did it. And I'm kind of like, well, Lily, they wouldn't be able to afford you right now. What happened? So that's number one. And then number two is they don't have like that bouncing board to kind of say like, that's not going to work. Like they have to do trial and error. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that it is trial and error and everybody fails before they win. Very rare. It's like a unicorn that you hit it out of the park. It takes a long time of strategy, even when you're working with a professional marketer, to get it right. Second thing, Lily, what happens if somebody does, which happens a lot now, especially after COVID, virtual? How do you compare the market when it's not local, when it's virtual?
Okay, well, the market when it's virtual, it really all depends on your business. And I really think that there's kind of like what you said, trial and error, because it's a bigger pool, but there's more competition.
Okay.
So just like you're able to now speak to somebody, across the nation,
okay,
people across the nation could also pull from you, right? So I think that when you come to, I guess, grassroots, what you're going to do, right? If you are a small business owner and your budget is limited, you need to focus on social and digital 100%, just because it's a much lower investment.
What do you mean by digital?
Oh, digital, I mean banners on Google, maybe banners on YouTube, things like that.
Okay.
And maybe social is a little bit more accessible, right? Because people are more comfortable with it since they're users already.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes our eyes are not like really trained to see like, oh, look at that beautiful ad on the right. If you're not really into that, type of industry, right? But they're there. And now that I mentioned it, you're probably going to notice them. Yeah, I think maybe social. Okay, let's say social. So Facebook and Instagram, when you're able to do it yourself, right? You don't need to have somebody as a professional with a special login to do it, right? As long as you create your profile, you create it into a business, then you're able to go into the Google or the Facebook ad manager and really play with things yourself. And it has little suggestions. So that really does help. And those suggestions are based off of what they're analyzing, they're seeing across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say definitely pay attention to those little pop-ups that come up. Then also think about, okay, well, Facebook and Instagram or both, because you're able to do both of them from that same platform since it's now called Meta as like that overarching brand.
Even just by what you're saying, for me, is if you're virtual, that is even more of a reason to have a clear ICA and a clear niche. Because now if you're competing with a larger market, yes, you have access to more people, but you're also going to have more competitors. So you have to be extra crystal clear on who you're trying to connect with.
Right. Exactly.
Love it. Well, I try to keep these short and sweet. Thank you so much for all the information you gave us. I think it's a really good start. Definitely having you on again. We're going to figure out other things to talk about. But this has been really helpful for the layperson to hear from a professor and a professional. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Lily, so much for being here again.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Thank you all.
I'm glad. We'll have you on again. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited you tuned in. The best way to find out the second a new episode is released and receive all the valuable tools and actionable steps I share is to subscribe to the podcast, so make sure you do that. Sending you so much love until next time. Bye.